Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Catherine Mattias, founder and CEO of Civility Partners. We are an organization focused on building positive, thriving work environments. And today I have Marielle. Marielle, thanks so much for joining me. She's a personal branding expert, LinkedIn top voice in 2023, which is a big deal, a branding mentor, you're a LinkedIn learning instructor, and you work with women mostly around branding. So tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks so much for having me here, Catherine. And hi to everybody that's joining live and watching the replay. I'm really excited to talk with you today. So, the work that I essentially do is empower people really to really take ownership of their strengths so that they could become better known and recognized for the work that they do. I often say that's my superpower.
I love it. I love it. I love how everybody's saying superpower lately. So tell me, what does personal branding mean and how does that equate to or help us feel empowered?
Yeah. It's really about understanding who you are. I think that's the first point. Like anyone that's watching this live, it's really important, first and foremost, to almost self-audit and really get clear on what you want to be known for. Because we all are probably familiar with the quote by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, right? That your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And if you think about it from a career perspective, every single big decision happens when we're not in the room, right? Should you be promoted? Should you work on that new exciting project? Should you be given a pay increase? All of these big decisions are happening when we're not in the room. So it's on us to get really clear, first and foremost, on what we want people to say about us when we're not in the room. So I would essentially say that personal branding is about having an intentional strategy around how you want to show up and what you want to be known for. And it's very
Okay.
different, I must say. It's very different to having a reputation because your reputation is how other people describe you, but your personal brand is what you are intentionally putting out there.
Okay, that makes sense in terms of a differentiator. That definitely
Yeah.
helps. So I used to teach interpersonal communication in college and always talked about all the ways we communicate, one of which is the way that we dress, the way we smell, our hairstyle. So I feel like that's a little bit of personal branding, that the
Oh,
way you
yeah.
dress and show up in a room is part of that. Is that fair?
Absolutely. It's every single essence of you, right? Like you said, smell, every sense, right? How you smell. And to be honest, I've never really touched on that much, but yeah, the perfume you wear, the colors you wear, everything conveys a message. So it's super important that we put thought into this. And I see that the chat is really going crazy already. So hi to everybody joining live. It's nice to see everybody on.
Yes, thank you. And do please ask us questions. We have an expert here, so type some questions in there and we'll get them answered. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you first start working with an individual, let's say, and I mean, I'm hearing you say it's really being strategic about how you put yourself out in the world, what you want people to be saying about you. That seems
Yeah.
like a lot of work. What does a personal branding strategy kind of look like?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I've actually just come off of a strategy session with a client just an hour ago. So I'll probably use her as an example.
Great.
She was feeling really confused as to how she positioned herself on LinkedIn. And my background actually is PR. So I spent over nearly 20 years working in PR in London and then more recently New York. And PR is really about storytelling, right? It's about
Mm,
telling your story and it's about really thinking who it is that you want to communicate to, right? And if we think about that in through the lens of LinkedIn and our LinkedIn profile specifically, all of us who are on LinkedIn right now need to make sure that we are positioning ourselves to our ideal client, or if we're in a 9 to 5, to our key stakeholder, right?
mhm,
So that
mhm.
really has to be the first. That's where I always start, is to look at how are you positioning yourself. Again, what do you want to be known for? And sometimes it's easier to start with the end in mind,
Mhm.
because then you could break it down and almost reverse engineer what it is that you want to be known for into like small micro steps. So for
Mhm.
this particular client, she's an education consultant. But when you landed on her LinkedIn profile, that wasn't clear at all because she wasn't really telling her story in a very simple way.
Mhm.
So we worked together to really get clear on her key messages and really just in a very simple way to describe the problem that she solved and how she could effectively help her clients. So that's usually the first step.
Okay, so starting with LinkedIn, what else goes into personal branding? Are you looking at things like for consultants, their website or how
Yeah.
their elevator pitch when they're at networking
Yes.
events? Okay.
Yeah, so I've actually developed a framework, and this is typically what I work with companies on. Companies hire me to deliver personal branding workshops, and my proprietary framework is what I call the 5 Ps of personal branding, or Marielle's 5 Ps of personal branding, because I'm sure if you speak to another personal branding expert, they'll have a totally different framework, which is fine. But for
Mhm.
me, I believe like the 5 key elements that we all need to master. And for those of you watching, you may want to take some notes. The first P is around performance mindset. And when I talk about performance mindset, I'm talking about really understanding what your limiting beliefs are and how
Mhm.
they may be holding you back or preventing you from showing up. So we all have limiting beliefs, Catherine, but many of us just aren't even aware of them, right? So that has
Mhm.
to be the first thing. And in
Mhm.
that, I encourage people to really reflect on what limiting beliefs are holding them from showing up or preventing them from promoting their work, being visible online. We all have those limiting beliefs. So I
Yeah.
would actually love for those watching live to share with us in the chat what is a limiting belief or a fear that may be preventing you from putting yourself out there. And I'll go first. One
Okay.
of mine was around I can't do video. People are going to be judging me, people are going to be looking at me. I didn't want to do video. So that was a really common, and that's such a common limiting belief. So that's the first P around performance mindset and really understanding what may be stopping you and working
Mhm.
through those fears.
Mhm.
The second one, as you mentioned, is pitch, really helping people craft a really compelling elevator pitch. And in the corporate workshops I do, I encourage people to move away from just using their job title because your
Mhm.
job title is quite vague. It doesn't tell us anything. What I encourage people to use is a compelling story narrative instead. So that's the second pitch. And I'm
Okay.
seeing a lot of people in the chat sharing. It's going really fast. You've got a
I
lot of
love it.
people.
We have imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
boasting about yourself. I'm excited people are saying imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about that. Don't you worry. And I love
Yeah.
seeing how many people are coming from all over the world. It's so fun to see all of the interactions. So thanks all
Yeah.
for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, imposter syndrome is so, so common. And that's why I always start there as well, because to dive straight into the strategy, I feel is a wrong approach. It's almost backwards because if you're trying to teach strategy and people aren't feeling confident, they've got so many limiting beliefs, so many mindset blocks, no strategy is going to work. So this is why the performance mindset is key, really helping people unlock their limiting beliefs. And then we look at pitch, so helping people craft a really strong story narrative so that when you meet people, we're always, well, at least we should always be consciously building our network. Most
Hmm.
people are afraid to network or they downplay the impact that they make. So I help people essentially craft a compelling pitch so that they feel more comfortable when they're caught on the hop or they're in an elevator with somebody very senior and they don't know what to say. So that's the second P, which is pitch. The
Okay.
third is presence. So helping people develop their executive presence, but also their online presence, like looking at LinkedIn, right? Because in this climate, people are going to be Googling us. So it's on
Mhm.
us to make sure that we're comfortable with our digital footprint.
Mhm.
Number four is partners, so helping people essentially network more effectively and teaching the etiquette around networking, because a lot of people don't know how to network, or they're quite transactional in
Mhm.
when they're networking, and I'm not really a fan of that. I think
Mhm.
you could very quickly kill or crush relationships by being too transactional.
Yeah.
And then the fifth P is all about planning. So I put a post up earlier today, about the importance of having a career visibility plan for yourself, because nothing is going to happen if we don't take action. So that is a
Yeah.
fifth P. I really want to encourage people to take action on whatever it is that they want to be known for, to make sure that they are being intentional and that they do have a strategy, even if it's just a very loose one. But that's really important as well. So
I
yeah,
love
I
that.
hope.
That's so succinct. I really appreciate what you're saying. And thank you, Ashish, for recapping for us. Here, I'll post these. Performance mindset, pitch, presence,
It's
partners,
presence
and
part.
planning. Those are
Absolutely.
Marielle's 5 Ps. What
Yes,
else
my
have you got?
5P framework. So yeah, thank you. And I do want it to be simple. I want it to be actionable. And yeah, because I feel like each of us that is watching right now needs to be in full control of our growth and the path that we take. So hopefully the framework is empowering to those
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
journey.
It's empowering for me. I'm like, I could probably do better with my pitch when I'm at networking events. I'm kind of stumble over it, but we'll
Yeah.
discuss that later. Let's talk about imposter syndrome, because I have some probably unpopular beliefs about that phrase. So let's talk about it. So tell me first, what is imposter syndrome? Do you believe in it? What's that all about?
Yeah, and I know that the term in itself has kind of there's two schools of thought. To start with the definition, it's essentially a feeling of inferiority, or a feeling of the fact that you don't belong, that somebody's going to come and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, what are you doing here? Like, you don't belong, or you're incompetent, or you're unintelligent." All of
Mhm,
those fears are valid, and I
mhm,
feel like um, I know that it gets such a bad rap, but I myself know what it's like to be sat in a boardroom, sat surrounded by a middle-aged white man, and I'm often the only woman or the only person of color. I know that that feeling is valid.
mhm,
So even though I know the term itself gets a bad rap, I do know what it's like to feel
mhm.
like you don't belong, or like you're not very smart. So yeah, that those are my thoughts. And I know that a lot of people, particularly women and high performers, struggle with that very same feeling. And for those of you watching online, just know that you're not alone if you've ever felt like that as well. I think it was KPMG that came out and said 70% of professionals have felt that feeling before.
Yeah.
But yeah, Catherine, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I appreciate, Leah says something about people receiving awful comments. Hopefully that's not here on our, no, that's not. I just wanted to check and make sure there weren't any awful comments here. Okay. Um, I so my thoughts on imposter syndrome are that, and I appreciate your explanation. So maybe I'm a little off in my definition. I feel like what it essentially boils down to is lacking a little bit of confidence. And what I feel is that, because I too often feel like, should I be in this sales meeting? Is this company, am I worthy of this company? That kind of thing. But also that it's a sign that you're growing. So in your example, where you're the only person of color possibly, and everybody else is white male, I get that. And that's maybe a different scenario than what
Mhm.
I'm thinking about when I'm defining imposter syndrome
Yeah,
for myself. So because that, and I've been the only woman in a room and that kind of a
yeah.
thing. But yeah, I feel like if I'm not feeling imposter syndrome, then I'm not growing. But that's kind of my thought around it.
Yeah. And that's a good thought as well, because I think about even when I made the transition from working in a 9 to 5 to becoming a business owner, that was a huge identity shift, because it's like,
Mhm,
hold on a second, you go from this very structured environment where you've got a manager who you report into, you've got set hours, and then you become a business owner and you're there, it's like a blank canvas, right? You've got to
mhm.
create your own systems, your own structure. And that in itself could bring up a whole host of feelings. So maybe it is around that discomfort piece. I do like that, because that also, like you said, it shows that you're growing, and you're never going to feel that unless you stay, if you stay stuck in your comfort zone and stay stuck doing the same thing, you probably won't feel imposter syndrome, or however we want to describe it.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, it's around really clarifying exactly what we're talking about when we're saying imposter
Yeah, the
syndrome.
context is key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got some good. Lindsay says, Reshma, I don't know how to, Sujani spoke at Smith College 2023 at commencement. She has a wonderful view on imposter syndrome. I highly recommend to watch and listen. Ooh, let's post this one so that everybody can take a look at this. We can
Yeah.
find that online, I'm sure. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lindsay.
Mm.
Definitely continue to send in your questions and comments and thoughts. Love seeing all of the interaction.
Yeah.
Now, Marielle, you said that you work mostly with women. Tell me more about that. Why is that? Why do women need more love?
Yeah. Predominantly women in corporate, right? So, I mean, I work with both, but in terms of the corporate work that I do, it's typically companies that recognize that the women aren't progressing to the top, to senior leaderships as rapidly as as men. And there's a whole host of reasons for this. Obviously, women are typically the main caregivers of children and things like that. But there's also a whole host of, I feel, systemic issues around women who struggle with, for instance, speaking up, putting themselves out there. So this is where my framework is really powerful, because it really helps people get to the bottom of the challenges that they may be facing, and then helps them essentially create a plan for themselves to really feel more empowered, and just start networking and really start putting themselves out there in a way that they've not done before.
Okay. Yeah. Women, well, just this morning at my networking group, I was talking about, it's Gay Pride Month. So we were kind of doing some messaging around that and being aware
Yeah.
that all of us, whether you're gay or not, receive messaging that's homophobic, and that
Mm.
so sometimes people, or I'm sure a lot of gay people, internalize that as well. And so for women, it's the same thing, that we're also receiving lots of messages that we're not worthy, we're not as good as men, we should be paid
Yeah.
less. So we have a lot more inner stuff happening. And
Yeah.
just complete side note, I have been watching Working Moms on Netflix. Have you seen this show?
I've not. No. Is
Oh
it good?
my, you have to watch it. I'm HR, and it's totally inappropriate it's not an HR appropriate show, but it's about these four women who just had babies, and the main character works in a corporate PR firm, actually. And
Oh,
it just highlights over and over and over again the way she's treated, and being told, shouldn't you be at home with your baby? Are you sure you want that promotion? You just had a baby.
gosh.
And thankfully, that character is strong enough to take it and dish it right back out. But
Yeah.
it's great for just, yep, that's what women go through right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very real. And it takes a strong character as well not to internalize that as
Yep.
well. So a large part of the work I do is helping to build people up and help them believe in themselves, because like I said, without that belief, nothing else is, that no strategy is going to work, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's where I myself struggled in my career, is that I you know I struggled with my confidence. So telling me then, oh yeah, let's put together this annual report, let's really promote the company, let's do this, when I wasn't feeling good within myself, there
Yeah.
was a disconnect.
So some of this is a little bit of therapy, helping people build the confidence to then put themselves out there and represent themselves in the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah,
We have a
absolutely.
great question. What about if you're a student? So, how do you deal with feeling that imposter syndrome if you're a student and you're in events and meetings? And I think all of our younger selves can attest to feeling all of that, being nervous. So,
Yeah,
what are some tips?
it's a great question. And I think, to be honest, student, entrepreneur, professional, my advice will always be the same. And I think, firstly, it's about almost assessing yourself, like self-auditing, really getting deep into what is the root cause of your discomfort. That's the
Mhm.
first thing. What is the root cause of your discomfort? And also, you know, maybe you've had some experiences, some stories, or some trauma even that needs to be released. Perhaps it could be a story. Sometimes we make up stuff in our own head, you know. As I
Yeah.
said earlier, people are judging me. That was a big fear of mine to do video. Nobody was even looking at me. People don't
Yeah.
care. People are more concerned with what they're going to have for dinner, right? They're not
Yeah.
thinking, oh, what's this person doing? But I had a story that, you know, if I do a video, people will be like judging me. So I think really get into the bottom of what may be holding you back. And this, again, is the first P that I spoke about, that mindset piece, the performance, really
Mhm.
getting clear, what story am I telling myself? And is that story true? What story am I telling myself? And is that story true? Oftentimes, like I said, facts are not feelings, right? So we often make up stories. And then it's about sending yourself almost like a little challenge,
Mhm.
almost gamifying it. Okay, I don't like networking, but I'm going to go to a networking event and I'm going to go by myself and I'm going to speak to just one person. You know, just
Mhm.
doing something, taking one small piece of action, almost to just build that courage muscle, because you're only going to build that confidence and courage muscle by working it. So it has to
Mhm.
be action led.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's really just firstly starts with self reflection and then taking some action based on the thing that you may be afraid of.
I love that. That actually really resonates with me. For all the other entrepreneurs out there, I remember watching a speech once where the speaker was saying just that, you know, that if you own a business, you have to do something every single day related to it. And I'm not saying work 8 hours on Saturday and Sunday, but even just check your LinkedIn and post a comment as a business owner. And that the whole point was that if you do something every single day, exactly what you're saying, it's like, well, I'm a business owner, and it's about
Yeah.
building that as part of your identity, that you're a business owner and doing something every day.
Yeah.
Let's,
And it compounds over time, you know, it's like, yeah, that compound effect is so powerful. You know, we may
yeah.
not necessarily be able to see it immediately, but just know that if you just keep showing up and just taking a small piece of action over time, you'll look and you'll think, wow. And
Yeah,
I
here I
think,
am 14 years later. Never would have thought the first
yeah,
thing I did was create a website. I got laid off at the other recession in 2008. I came home
yeah.
and I made a website, and then I had a business.
Oh, wow. And then it was like, okay, now I need clients. Well, now
Yeah.
what am I going to do? I'm going to
And
build my
back
brand.
then, nobody was searching for workplace bullying. So I actually did get clients from my little teeny, probably
Oh,
very
wow.
ugly website.
Is it still there? Is it still live?
The old one, I think I may have had it taken down. I won't tell you what the link was so nobody can go and search it. But let's see. We have some comments around some of the people of color comments that you and our conversation that you and I have. So Dr. Bruce says, I listed the first minute, and already the lady is mentioning colors of skin in men. If a man said this about a Black woman, there would be an outrage. Can we please leave race and colors of skin out? Yes.
That's not,
Go ahead.
that's really, go on, you go.
Oh, I was going to say your last sentence, imposter syndrome, does cover all sexes and skin colors. But so I agree with that last sentence. So go ahead, Marielle.
Yeah, to that gentleman, can you post the comment on screen? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sharing my Dr. Patrick Bruce, I'm sharing my experience. I don't know what it's like to be a white man. I'm talking about my personal experience. So I'd appreciate some respect.
Thank you very much. And yes, we've got, could we please also address people respectfully? Okay. Oh, there's lots of, okay, here's a good question. Let me put this one up from Angela. Where did it go? How important is knowing your purpose or your why when building your personal brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. How important is no? I feel like it's okay not to know your purpose or your why, because that may evolve over time, right? Like it's always gonna change as you grow and you develop yourself, your priorities are going to change. So don't feel that you need to be crystal clear on your purpose or your why. I feel like that's always going to be constantly in movement.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know Simon Sinek wrote that book, I think Start With Why, but
Yeah.
I also feel like age probably has something to do with it, and maybe not. But I know now that my brand is disruptive and loud, hence the bright colors and my logo and that kind of a
Yeah.
thing. But I don't know that if you had asked me 14 years ago when I started what my brand was, I would have said it's disruptive.
Yeah. It really does
Oh,
evolve. And I think as we grow in our confidence as well, like, maybe if you were just coming out of corporate, who knows? Maybe you might not have felt comfortable like being so bold and with the bold colors. And now as you step into more of who you are, we gather that courage to just show up more powerfully, I believe anyway.
I agree. Okay, so question one from Maura. Yes, this sits on this page until the end of time, so you can watch it all day, every day. Not that you would, but and then to you, Marielle, is there a good tool or questionnaire regarding your personal brand that where you could get some feedback? I love that question.
Yeah, that is a great question. I feel like a good starting place is like your close friends and family, like people who know you well. Just yesterday, I had a lawyer friend WhatsApp me. She's working with an executive coach, and her coach set her a task to find out how her friends would describe her. So she asked me and she said, "Hey, Marielle, how would you describe me? I know that you know me quite well. What words would you use to describe me?" So maybe that's something that you could do as well, Maura, is just ask some friends, like 2 or 3 friends, to describe you in like 3 or 4 words. That will help you get an idea of how you're showing up externally. And then the third question, how often to check in, what is your personal brand? Um, yeah, and I would say I like to operate in quarters.
Mm,
So the fifth P that I mentioned was about having a visibility plan for yourself,
uh-huh.
because businesses, Maura, operate in quarters. And I feel like we should do too, because thinking about the whole year in its entirety, I don't know about people watching, but to me that feels really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So
In five
I like
years, this is going to be my brand.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
quarter.
now I like to operate in quarters. So we're in Q2 now, the last month of Q2. So every 90 days, I sit and think about, okay, what have I done during this mini new year? I reflect on the highs, the lows, and I celebrate at the end of each quarter. It's almost like a kind of mini new year celebration whereby I take some time off and just relax a bit before starting the next quarter. So that's how often I kind of check in.
I love this. You know your stuff. That's a great idea to think about it in quarters. I think especially if you're really focusing on building a personal brand and being very strategic about it. I
Yeah.
was thinking of a suggestion too to your second question. I know when I started with my marketing firm to build my website and my logo and everything, they gave me a page of just adjectives and they wanted me to circle what feelings do I want people to feel when they're looking at my website. So you could probably, I'm
Yeah.
sure online, locate a list of some
Yeah.
words and just like which words describe me because I love that.
Yeah. And that feeling point, Catherine, is so, so important, especially in branding, because that's what it's about. Like you're communicating all the time. How do you want people to feel when they encounter you? You want them to feel seen and heard
Mhm.
and supported. And even in my keynotes, when I'm kind of getting into the zone, I always think about how do I want people to feel? Because it's
Mhm.
never really about me. I think,
Yeah.
how do I want to leave these people feeling? So
Mhm.
that's a really important point to reflect on. And I highly encourage all of you in the work that you're doing as well is to think about how do I want people to feel?
Here's
because
a question for you. We're out of time, but I'm going to ask anyway, and then we've got some great questions. Do you have time, Marielle, to just hang out
yeah,
for
of course,
a
yeah.
minute? Okay, awesome. So here's a question. One of my team members she's been seeing an executive coach, and now she's kind of really coming into her own, which has been really fantastic to watch this, like, all of a sudden just growing into the next version of herself. And she even got a stylist at Nordstrom. It's free. She set up an appointment and they just bring you clothes and they just get a commission off of whatever you buy. So she did that.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about, I guess, personal brand without realizing it here. And the word that's used to describe me is eccentric. And I'm not sure I love that word. And so what if I, like we're saying, ask your friends, what are the words? What are the words? What do you do if you're not so sure if you like the words?
That's a great, but I love the word eccentric.
I do
Would
too, I guess. I don't
do
know. I guess I was like, am I? I mean, like, it wasn't how I had thought of myself, which I guess is why you should ask.
yeah, but the word eccentric to me, it's kind of like you're different, you're quirky, you're not like, or you don't want to be like everyone else, do you?
Yeah.
Like blending in. Like I definitely don't anyway. So I think that's a great word, eccentric.
Yeah, I know I'm quirky, but yeah, I felt like, thank you, Marielle. I'll own it. I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Another question from Harrison. Great question. Is it advisable to share stories about your failures when you're building your personal brand?
Yes, but you need to do that's a great question, Harrison. Yes, but you need to do it strategically. Because if you're wanting to position yourself as an expert and an authority, sure, be vulnerable, share your failures, but most importantly, share how you overcame that, share the
Mhm.
lesson, share the learning point. Because I see a lot of people trying to do this whole vulnerable storytelling, and it's almost like it's become quite a cliche now.
Mhm.
You don't want to do it in a way that positions you as somebody that's kind of like, your life is falling apart and
Yeah.
you're kind of a shambles. You want to do it in a way whereby, okay, this is what happened to me, like pain to glory, right? Pain to glory. So this is a pain that I experienced, and this is now the triumph, or this is a lesson I learned, because then you are positioning yourself as a thought leader and somebody that is still vulnerable and still has low points like we all do. It helps you be much more relatable as well, but you also want to share the lesson, and because that's what's going to help you be much more credible than if you just stop at the pain and then it's like, oh wow,
Yeah.
do I need to give you a
I
tissue?
don't
Do
think
you
we
need
should promote this person. They're a mess. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I love
So it
that
needs to be done
answer.
strategically.
Yeah, I love that answer. I bet, Harrison, if you hire Marielle, she'll help you pick out exactly what stories you should
That's true.
tell and how they might end. We we have some more great questions if you have a couple more minutes. I love it
Yeah,
when
these
we
are thanks everybody for Catherine, you've got a great, and I see a lot of my contacts on as well, but you've got a lot of engaged people.
Yeah. All right. So Ashish asked, from a professional viewpoint, should we be building brand based on past experiences or future direction? I'm a business owner, but looking for a job. Great question.
Yeah. Okay, so I am a business owner, but currently looking for a job. So I think it's okay to have multiple messages, but I would always lead with what you want to be known for as a priority, right? So thinking about who is the person that's going to land on your LinkedIn profile and what's the first thing you want them to see. Lead
Mhm.
with that, whatever that is. So is it, if it's you're looking for a job, then it needs to be, that's the message that you need to lead with. And thinking with my PR hat on, when you're telling your story or when you're positioning yourself on LinkedIn, you always want to think in terms of like an inverted pyramid. So almost like imagine like an upside down pyramid, right?
Mhm.
The first message is the most important, right? And then you need to filter down from there. So this message needs to hit us in the eyes, between the eyes, right? This is the most important message. So think about who is the person that is going to land on your page and what's the first thing they're going to see. That has to be the most important. almost like as if you're reading a newspaper. You see the headline first, right? That is the thing that is going to appeal to your ideal client the most. So you need to lead with that and then follow down with your secondary message and your last message. I hope that's clearly explained, but let me know if that's not clear.
Yeah, let us know. I have a follow-up question to that. This ties into Harrison's question around the failures. Not that, Ashish, you are a failure in any way, shape, or form, but I feel like there would have to be a story around why you're leaving the company that you own and founded and are moving to a job. And so that kind of ties back to Harrison, is really crafting the right kind of story around that.
For sure.
Okay. We have, let's see, a couple more questions and then we got to call it quits, everyone. But Marielle is available on LinkedIn if you want to keep talking to her.
And to you, Catherine.
And me, but I'm not the branding expert. Feel free to post on LinkedIn every day. And what do you think about putting yourself out? And what's the first thing to do when putting yourself out? I'm assuming you mean out into the world.
Yeah, this is a great question. And I actually did a video about this where I went against everyone who's saying you must post on LinkedIn every single day. I guess it depends what your goal is. I think you want to be really strategic and thinking, okay, who is it that I'm trying to talk to? And are they likely going to be active on LinkedIn every single day? Think about it like that. And also, don't feel that you have to just post for the sake of it. I think quality is always better than quantity. There's other ways that you can engage with people on LinkedIn. So, for instance, via the DMs is much more personal. People who view your profile, people who follow your profile. There's other ways to show up on LinkedIn and build relationships aside from just posting. And someone, I'm an introvert at heart, right? So I get quite tired from being online and engaging with like loads and loads of people. It does overwhelm me and it really depletes my energy. So if you're introverted as well, that's just something that you want to be mindful of. You want to really work to your energy type and make sure that how you're working is aligned to you and that you're not trying to just do what everybody else is telling you to do.
Yeah, and I also am an introvert. So thank you for sharing that. And I guess we could have a whole nother conversation around personal branding if you're an introvert. That part 2, Marielle.
Yeah.
Okay, last quick question. Does your brand change as we change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, I would say so. I think, again, starting with the end in mind, like thinking, okay, what do you want to be known for? That may change, your interest may change. So that means that your messaging has to change. That means that your content has to change. So absolutely it does. And I think it's just part of the journey,
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is absolutely one of my favorite LinkedIn lives that I've done. You are such a joy to speak with, and you had so much cool stuff to say, and loved it. So we'll have you back for a part 2. So stay tuned, everyone. And where can everyone reach you?
Yeah, so I'm here on LinkedIn most days, or just hiding in the DMs. But yeah, just connect with me, Marielle Legair, on LinkedIn. I've also got a website as well. I do have a checklist available for entrepreneurs who want to establish their brand and build their thought leadership on LinkedIn. So definitely check that out as well. And any questions that you've got, I'll be happy to answer those as well.
Awesome.
And Catherine, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you again. This was super fun. I feel like kindred spirits. I want to hug you. It was awesome.
And I'm a bit eccentric too, so it's great.
What's that?
I'm a little eccentric as well, so it's great.
Oh, perfect. All right. Thank you so much. We're getting tons of thank yous and all of that. So that's to you. I'm just here to be here. You're here with all the expertise. So thank you so much. Looks like everyone got a ton of great information. So she'll be back. Don't you worry all. Thank you again. Have a great afternoon.